Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our crazy, fun, busy Wednesday night. Today is our interview, and I am here with our soon-to-be Associate Pastor, Karen Nelson, and we are going to get the inside scoop on her. We're going to get to know her and have her introduce herself before she officially becomes our pastor. So welcome, Karen, and
thank you,
Lauren,
for
being with us.
The inside scoop, huh?
Yes,
okay,
it's going to be really exciting. So we know that you're a pastor, you're going to be our associate pastor, but let's start off by having you tell us a really fun or interesting fact about yourself that many people might not know.
Okay. You told me you were going to ask that, Lauren, so I was thinking about that because I don't think there's anything that fun or interesting about me. But I thought maybe this would be interesting. I'm a prayer doodler. So the way I pray is I kind of pray visually. So I do that sort of to keep focused on what I'm doing. So I brought it to show you. You want to see?
Yes.
So this is my prayer doodling for you guys, for the staff here.
Yay.
So what I do, see, this is what it looks like. I just start out writing down names. And then the next time I come back to that, I will maybe like put a circle or a frame around it or something. And then some other time when I come back to it, I color around it and I doodle around it. So I found this for myself really helpful during this time of pandemic. When my mind would wander easy, I'd sit down to pray and I wouldn't know what to do, what to say, how to pray. And so this just helped me to stay focused on prayer. So I think that's kind of interesting. I don't know if a lot of people do that. I'm a pretty visual person, but I also do that with scripture. So like Sunday, Pastor Scott gave us a verse from Romans 12:12, and he said this would be a great memory verse. And he's right, it would be a great memory verse. But I'm not a great memorizer. I don't really know how, I don't do that well, but I can meditate on stuff. So what I did is I wrote that scripture down, and then for days I will just doodle around it. So when I'm sit down doing my quiet time, I will doodle around it, and somehow that kind of gets into my heart. So the scripture he gave us was rejoice in hope, be patient in suffering, and persevere in prayer. So last night as I was doing this, I was watching American Idol was also on, and I was doodling around, but every commercial then I would say this out loud. And then I tried to get my husband involved, and I would say it, and then I'd stop and look at him to see if he'd pick up the next word, and he'd just roll his eyes at me, and wouldn't participate. But I do that around scripture. So I just grabbed some to show you. When the pandemic started, the scripture that I sat in for a long time was Psalm 91. It brought me comfort, and I just kept praying it over and over again. So I ended up like doodling almost every verse probably over this last year. So I wanted to show you this one. This is the first verse. It says, whoever dwells in the shadow of the Most High will rest, whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. And so I did that, but look at even COVID got some doodle time in there as I was praying.
I love it.
So anyway, I brought that to share.
So cool. I love it.
Thanks.
And I too am like an artsy visual person.
Yeah.
So I might have to steal that idea from you because it seems very effective.
Yeah, it does. Because sometimes if I can't remember something, I remember where it was placed on that page or what color it was, and it helps me to remember.
Right.
Yeah, have fun with that.
That is so cool. I'm so glad you shared that. So how old were you, I want to know, when you decided that you wanted to be a pastor, and how did you know that that's what you wanted to do?
How old was I? I was old. I grew up in the church. Church has always been important to me. My earliest memories are church memories, being a little girl in church. So church has always been a part of my life, and I've always been involved in church. And so because of that, I don't think it ever crossed my mind to be a pastor. Probably part of that was because I watched what they did, and it seemed like a lot of work, and why would anybody want to do that? That was kind of my thought about that. But what I would do is just always get involved in church, whatever was going on, just be involved because I loved it. And sometimes as I would do that, people would say to me things like, oh, you should go into ministry, or you missed your calling. And I always wondered why people would say that, because Lauren, you know this, there's a lot of really good ministry that can happen in a church, and you don't have to be a pastor to do that. I wonder why would people say that, but it would always make me think, what are they saying that? What are they seeing? And then I would just do something more at church, like I'd join another committee, or I'd do another study, or teach something like that. And always in the back of my mind wondering what that might look like, but not being all that interested in it because I was pretty involved in church.
Sure.
And then one Sunday, sitting in the congregation, the scripture for that Sunday was from the 4th chapter of John, and it was the story of Jesus' encounter with a woman from Samaria. So they were talking at the well, Jacob's well, I think it was, and they were talking, and Jesus was kind of getting into her life, talking about her life, things that only Jesus would know. And she asked Jesus hard questions, and they developed this relationship. And then it says in that story that she went back to her community. She went back to Samaria and told people about Jesus. And there's a verse in there that says, many Samaritans believed because of her testimony. And when the pastor read that verse, it just like it hit me in church. I can go to the church in the pew where I was sitting.
Wow.
And I remember sitting there, and I said this to God, silently in my head. I said, God, if you would use that woman then to help people get to know Jesus, would you want to use this woman now for the same thing? That was just my question. And then I started looking into what it would mean to be a pastor. And in our system, in our United Methodist system, it's like a lot of steps. There's a process. Mm-hmm. And so I made a deal with God. I said, I will do that. And if it stops or the door's shut anywhere along the way, I'll know it's you, and I'm okay with that. So that's what I did. I just started going through that process, and so far the doors haven't shut. So I keep going. So you said, how old was I? I turned 40 when I was in seminary. So I had been, I think my whole life, I will have spent more time in the pews than I have in the pulpit. But that sort of has been my journey into being a pastor, but always in ministry.
Yeah. Wow, I love it. I love how you shared that it's not necessarily the first thing that you turned to, but it's something that kind of came to you later on, and then that's how you knew that it was going to be right for you.
Yes.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. So Methodist churches receive new pastors through a process called appointments, and taking on a new appointment is just part of your job. But have you ever felt scared or anxious when faced with a new appointment? And how do you rely on God during that big change in your life?
My initial response is like, heck yes. I mean, it's always scary, and anything new is a little bit scary. But then even when I say scary, it's like, nah, it hasn't really been scary because the church isn't scary to me. It never has been. I've never been afraid of the church. So that isn't scary to me. I guess it would be more exciting. Being in ministry and in our system, the United Methodist Church, this appointment thing. I have been appointed to churches that I never would have gone to otherwise, that I wouldn't have selected on my own, in communities that I wasn't necessarily a part of, and that has given me the opportunity to meet some people I never would have met and to see some things I never would have seen. So even though the system is difficult sometimes when you get a call and say, okay, now here, but it's always been good. So I've just learned to trust God in that. Also the people that are a part of that, colleagues in ministry, our district superintendents, the bishop, are prayerful about it and ask us to be too. So there's more people involved than just a couple. In that process of trying to discern where's the best place to be and who best serves different communities. So it's been kind of an exciting process.
Good. And if it wasn't for that process, we might not have you here with us.
Who knows?
So we're very grateful that you are trusting and that you've allowed this to happen. So what is your favorite thing about being a pastor with the United Methodist Church? I know that Methodists do things different than some other denominations. So what is your favorite part?
I haven't been in the Methodist Church my whole life. I didn't grow up in the United Methodist Church. So I kind of had to learn as we go. I happened to be a member of a United Methodist Church when I answered that call into ministry, when I sort of began that process. Okay. So I didn't know a lot about it as I was going in as to how it was different than other churches that I had been a part of. But I think being with United Methodist Church, what I love, one of the things is that we are everywhere. As I've traveled around the country, but especially Iowa, in some of our bigger cities, there's Methodist churches. In some of our little tiny communities, there's Methodist churches. We've got Methodist churches sprinkled in the countryside, around the country. I think that's great. But we're also all over the world. And so I just love being part of of a church that has that kind of reach into the world. The other thing I love about the United Methodist Church is the opportunities that it has given me to learn and lead. You know, just so many opportunities. I think of things along the way before I ever thought about going into ministry. The Methodist Church has lay servant training. Lay speaker training was something I was a part of. Walk to Emmaus was an opportunity where you could learn and then you could lead in different aspects. And I really like that because I think that gives all of us opportunities to be in ministry in all different places. So that's one of my favorite things about it.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking that question. That made me think about what do I love about this?
Yeah, I have been a Methodist my whole life. I
Really?
was baptized in this church, actually.
Oh, I love that.
So I don't really know any other denominations. So it's really interesting to hear from other people, you know, what they like about the Methodist Church. What made you choose it or
Yes.
stick with it?
Yes.
Because I don't really know any different. So I'm really glad that you
that's
shared
neat.
that.
A lifetime United Methodist.
I am, yes. Well, what are you most looking forward to about serving Cedar Falls First?
You know, this is an interesting opportunity for me because I've never been asked to serve at my church before. You know, it's always been asked to go somewhere else. So that's an exciting thing. My husband and I moved into Cedar Falls a couple years ago. And when we first started coming here, the thing that we both loved about this place was the way this congregation loved and cared for each other, but also the way they loved and cared for the community. And I think the thing that first caught our attention was what good neighbors this church is to Lincoln Elementary across the street. Mm-hmm. My husband's career before he retired was elementary principal. So the elementary school, elementary education is just near and dear to our hearts. The other thing is we have 4 grandchildren across the street at Lincoln Elementary. So when I started seeing the outreach that this church had to my grandkids' church, or to their school. So things like reading buddies, that we were sending people from here to read with my grandkids. That on Christmas, this congregation supported families from that school. And last month, was it last month we did the mission on books so that every kid in that school could have a book?
Right.
And I said something to my grandkids about that and they knew about that. So to be a part of a church that has that kind of an outreach to the community was something that really was important to us. And but then, you know, we joined the church and then the pandemic hit. And so we weren't here with people, and now that we're here, everybody's got masks on, you know, so we felt like we didn't really get a chance to know these people very well. So I think I'm most excited to get to know the people that love and care for each other so well and love and care for this community so well. I'm just looking forward to getting to know the people.
I love that answer.
I love this church, so it's fun to.
Good. Well, we're glad. Yeah, and I love that you highlighted that, you know, the outreach is something important to you because church is not what happens in these 4 walls. It's what happens outside of the 4 walls. Like how we prepare ourselves and each other for going out there in the world. You know, our motto, loving first, and then gather, grow, go.
I love
together.
That, yes, because it's too easy to keep it in here. I mean, you know,
too comfortable.
Too comfortable.
Yeah.
But the world needs it really badly. They need to be loved and cared for.
Right, yeah. Well, I am so glad that you were able to be here with us today and to let us get to know you a little bit more. And we are so excited to have you on staff come this summer. So again, thank you so much for being willing to answer these questions. And thank you guys at home for joining us. We hope that you enjoyed getting to know Karen as well. And she will be our new pastor before we know it. So thanks again for tuning in. And we will plan to see you guys next time. Bye.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you.
Hey, I got a question for you. If blueberries are a superfood, what are blueberry donuts? Pat Cole, thank you for the donuts. This one is not blueberry. I already ate the blueberry, but this one, whatever you call it, is pretty darn good. So hi everybody, it's Chris here. I'm sitting at the tech desk in the sanctuary. Here's my stuff, right? This is where we work with cameras and video gear to produce and to broadcast our Sunday church services. And I have a little quickie for you to think about, and it's this, that I could get hit by a bus. I could. I don't wanna, but I could. And that brings up the question, who would run this stuff on Sunday morning if I get hit by a bus or if I get struck by lightning? Who would bring the weekly dose of Jesus to the world if a grand piano fell on me from out of the sky or a meteorite struck, you know? I'm looking for some folks to back me up on this, to learn how to run this stuff. And let me just say a couple things about that quick. First, it's fun, right? We've got some pretty neat stuff to work with here. Pretty cool equipment to get your hands on and to learn how to operate. Second, it's a really neat way to serve the church, because when you're doing this, you become part of the crew that delivers the gospel message to the people who are worshiping with us right here in a room, right? Your church family, and also to your church family that's watching online wherever in the world they are. I mean, you're the person that's making this happen, and that's a very, very important person to our Sunday morning experience. And third, this isn't an every Sunday commitment that I'm asking you to make, right? First, I can teach you everything you need to know, and all I want you to do is once you get good at it, is to do it often enough to stay good at it. Say once a month or so. So I could use some help. I could use some help with Sunday morning technology, even right here in the sanctuary, and also the Scott Hall team that does the contemporary worship, the transformation worship service. I'm looking for adults, and I'm looking for I'm looking for youth that are 14 years and older, who have parents that will get them here on time. Pretty much anyone who's got a head on their shoulders and has a desire to learn this. I'd love to have your help. So if this sounds like a way that you could serve the church, please send me an email at chris.congdon@aboutfirst.com. Tell me you're interested. It's not a commitment just to send me an email and tell me that you're interested. And do it soon, because that bus could hit me at any moment. Thanks very much. We'll see you next time.